right, Matrixx and Rhodes Show supporters, we're going to talk about Alec Baldwin in this film Rust, and as we know, Alec Baldwin is in a good bit of trouble right now involving the shooting of the cinematographer of this film. Not only is Alec Baldwin an actor on this movie, but he is a producer on this film, which means there's a level of responsibility for him on this film that falls under his umbrella, and his cinematographer Halyna Hutchins is dead. Well, he shot the gun, right? He pulled the trigger. At least that is what's being, I think, alleged here, is that he ultimately pulled the trigger. I believe the FBI came out and said that for that gun, there's no way for it to go off without the trigger being pulled. And of course, a couple of weeks ago, Alec Baldwin was indicted on a manslaughter charge for the shooting on Rust. Well, yesterday he put in his plea and he pleaded not guilty to the charge of involuntary manslaughter in the 2021 fatal shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins on the set of the Western film Rust in New Mexico. Is this film dead on arrival? Or is this thing going to get actual publicity and people are going to want to see what this turd of a product ends up looking like? I know Jensen Ackles was in this film. I don't know if he is anymore, of course, from The Boys and from the series Supernatural, so I have no idea if he will be able to pull in some viewers for this film. But it seems like a total mess. But they're trying to finish this film right now. Question is, who in the world's going to distribute it? Although, we are talking about Hollywood here, and it's not like their moral compass is exactly pointing upwards. You know what I'm saying? According to court documents filed Wednesday in Santa Fe County Court, the 65-year-old Baldwin waived his right to an arraignment. Originally scheduled for Thursday, he pleaded not guilty to the charge, which was brought earlier this month by New Mexico special prosecutors. On October 21, 2021, on the film set outside of Santa Fe, the 42-year-old Hutchins was struck and killed by a live round when a prop gun being held by Baldwin discharged during rehearsal. Joe Souza, the film's director, was also wounded. Baldwin had repeatedly denied that he pulled the gun's trigger. However, forensic reports released by prosecutors last August determined it was likely the trigger had been pulled. Quote, although Baldwin repeatedly denies pulling the trigger given the test, findings and observations reported here, the trigger had to be pulled or depressed sufficiently to release the fully cocked or retracted hammer of the evidence revolver, firearms expert Lucien Hogg wrote in the report. Baldwin and the film's armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, were both charged with involuntary manslaughter in connection with the shooting in January of 2023. Now, I believe her father is like a big old-time armor on a lot of films and television shows, and I guess that's how she sort of got in the business, and there's been some controversy around her and what was her involvement. I think SAG has come out, or AFTRA, and have come out and tried to sort of cover for Baldwin and say that, you know, actors shouldn't have responsibility in an accident like this, yada, yada, yada. But again, he's a producer. So you would think that the safety of everybody involved is under the umbrella of said producer. Now, it's kind of weird. They haven't talked about, is this from the standpoint of him being a producer or an actor, or does it even matter? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter to them because they're talking about him as an individual, as a person. About 4 months ago, special prosecutors Kerry Morrissey and Jason Lewis said the involuntary manslaughter charge against Baldwin would be dropped based on the revelation of, quote, new facts in the case that demanded more analysis. A grand jury then indicted Baldwin, who is a producer on the film, on a count of involuntary manslaughter on January 19 of this year. According to the indictment, the charge was based on additional testimony from 7 witnesses, according to a New Mexico grand jury. Baldwin is not allowed to consume alcohol and cannot leave the U.S. without written permission from the court, according to a conditional release order signed by the judge Wednesday. He is also only allowed to have contact with potential witnesses as it pertains to, quote, business matters to do with the Rust movie. Well, how in the world do you regulate that? That seems ripe for corruption, does it not? The initial involuntary manslaughter charges brought against Gutierrez-Reed were not dropped. Last June, prosecutors also brought an additional count of felony fourth-degree tampering with evidence against her. She is expected to go to trial next month. In a previously filed probable cause statement, prosecutors alleged that on the afternoon of the shooting, Gutierrez-Reed retrieved the gun from the prop truck and handed it to Rust Assistant Director David Halls without conducting a necessary safety check. Well, that puts in a lot of checks and balances, doesn't it? Or it doesn't, and maybe they should have been there. Prosecutors said Halls also did not request a safety check, which would involve Gutierrez-Reed showing Halls each dummy round in the gun before he subsequently handed the weapon to Baldwin. In March of 2023, as part of the deal with prosecutors, David Halls pleaded guilty to unsafe handling of firearm and was sentenced to 6 months probation. Production on the film Rust resumed in early 2023 and wrapped in May of that year. So they're done with the filming. And again, I don't know where this stands as far as a distribution situation, and I don't know who in the world's going to want to watch this film. Initially, it kind of like, if they hadn't had this shooting and everything going on, I'd have been like, okay, well, I don't like Alec Baldwin's politics, but Alec Baldwin, Jensen Ackles, a Western. I like Westerns, so I might have actually ended up gotten around to, checking it out on one of these various streaming services. But now, no, I don't want anything to do with it. I really don't. This whole thing feels poisonous. It's weird. We all remember what happened back in the day very publicly and very famously involving Brandon Lee, who, of course, is the son of Bruce Lee, and he lost his life on the set of a movie from, I believe, what was supposed to be a blank that ended up killing him. And that's kind of went down in infamy now in movie lore. Alec Baldwin has always seemed like an entitled scumbag, or at least the last decade or so. And you've got to think that he thought his entertainment prowess was going to get him out of any potential trouble that was coming this way. Now, I don't know what the sentencing's like in New Mexico for this offense. I know, like here in Texas, vehicular manslaughter, something like that, can be a wide berth of potential outcomes when it gets around the sentencing, like even including, just probation and a lot of fines, depending on if you don't have a record, yada, yada, yada. What this will do with Alec Baldwin and all the money he's got to fight this, who knows? I know he just bought a new property or a house and had left Hollywood. I don't think in the same way, in the same intentions as a Mark Wahlberg. He doesn't seem like nearly that good of a guy. I'm not the biggest Alec Baldwin fan anymore. I'm just not. In the 80s and 90s, had some pretty good stuff. But now he's butted his way into politics so much, and I hate all that crap he did on Saturday Night Live with Trump, that I just can't even stand to hardly look at him or even honestly talk about him. Of course he pleaded not guilty. We'll have to see. We'll watch this and see where it goes. Make sure you hit subscribe. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.